Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. For those of you whom I don't know, my name is James Rondo. I have the great honor and privilege of serving as the president and Eloise W. Martin director of our great museum. And I'm thrilled that you're all here on this beautiful Saturday afternoon in Chicago to experience one of the most epic works of art that has ever been displayed in our nearly 150-year history. And that is a very big statement. Before I turn the program over to the curator and to the artist, I want to just say a few personal notes. I, before being an administrator, was a curator of modern and contemporary art. So I've known Raqib's work when was the first Diet show? 30 years ago. Yeah. And I always paid attention, and I was always wowed, but I didn't know how to look at it. I didn't know how to understand it. And a few years ago, I met Raqib in Venice, and we looked at an exhibition together of his work. And Raqib didn't really say that much. But through osmosis, literally, because I was standing next to him, looking at his paintings, I began to see things I had never seen before. I began to understand a fraction of what was in front of me. I began to know something about, again, a fraction about what Raqib was thinking. And it was just because this magical human was next to me. And then I began a journey of being a careful student of Raqib's work and followed, the last 30%, only 25% of Paradise Lost. Because are we counting 21 years, 21 panels, 21 years, 100 plus feet? Again, epic. So I just wanted to really say thank you to all of you. Thank you to Raqib. Thank you to Dr. Madhuvanti Ghose, my colleague and curator, and has guided this project expertly with Raqib. And I also want to thank, although they're not here today, I want to thank our great friends, Usha and Lakshmi Mittal, who have really made this all possible, both on a practical standpoint, but also in terms of really brokering the friendship and the relationship with Raqib and the studio. So Usha and Lakshmi in absentia, I know you'll be here this week. Thank you. And again, thanks to all of you. And thank you, Raqib, and thank you, Madhu. It's yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those lovely words, James. And Raqib, a very, very, very warm welcome to Chicago, and many congratulations on Paradise Lost. And it's on. It's on. Yeah. Many congratulations on Paradise Lost. What does it feel like to see it up?
Well, I never really, hello everyone, and lovely to have you here. Well, I never really imagined to be on a wall in an institution like the Art Institute, so yeah, it's good.
Oh.
It has its own destiny, I guess.
It has its own destiny, indeed. So Raqib, like me, was born in Calcutta. So we are fellow Calcuttans, but unlike me, he was raised up in the mountains of Kashmir. And as you will see, that has shaped a lot of Raqib's own vision and his aesthetics for sure. So Raqib, I wanted to start by picking up the threads from what James was just saying, that you have been working on Paradise Lost for, over 2 decades of your life you've given to this work. When did you first start thinking about Paradise Lost? Can you share with us those early ideas and
Well, it's really strange because I think it was the second year of my bachelor's degree in St. Martin's. Oh, where's St. Martin's? Hold on a second. There's St. Martin's here. There you are. So yes, and well, back then it was on Charing Cross Road, and of course, it was a conversation with a friend of mine, and that I just thought that wouldn't it be fabulous to have a painting that, in a way, chronologizes a life, and that not only like a visual diary of my life, as well as the development of the art and the painting, and how, very much like Milton's poem, but only in terms of, I would imagine, the essence and the length. And it just started as a whimsical idea, and I had no idea that it would actually turn into a reality. And it strangely seems to have. But of course, this painting would be made up of a number of panels, and it would have to be shown on one wall. And that's the impossible folly of it. When you think about these things, and you really don't think that they're ever going to happen. But it's...
because you could never have, at that point, conceived of the size of it now.
It was just a flight of fancy. But then, as they say, that words do have their own spirits. And I think that in this instance, as time goes by, I more and more believe that it is the paintings that... dictate my life, as opposed to the other way around, because as I thought that these were my decisions and these were my life decisions, and then I realized that it was very much like, as I always say, in the Proustian sense of the word, someone writes a book about their lives, and then sometimes someone writes a book and the life becomes a manual for that book. So it's when I look at these paintings, I feel that my life, the various things that happened to me in my life, they followed some sort of a sequence, and that sequence was dictated by the paintings themselves. I know it sounds weird, but I really feel that's more closer to the truth than I can imagine.
So you kind of manifested.
I think I believe that I'm an instrument. I really don't feel that I'm necessarily an author of these works, especially this particular painting. I just feel that I'm an instrument, and I feel that it is meant for the future, and it's meant for people who are not born yet. And I think that I'll never know the real purpose of this work, but it certainly has nothing to do with this self-aggrandizing or like, oh look, I made this great painting, because I really didn't. It just happened.
And you hope to continue with it?
Of course I will. And the thing is that it's not that I wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to paint this and I'm going to paint that. No, they mirror my life, and the technique follows. So and the moment logic or reason, the moment it's almost that they don't want to be infected by logic and reason and practicalities. They just want to follow that symphony that they have. And I mean, let's not forget that none of these paintings, I mean, in the large one, I don't plan the composition. I only have that much of sort of, if I've done one panel, the second panel, there's only that much that I see. So it's not that it's all, spread out or composed on Photoshop or anything. So,
right.
So I mean, I do have a feeling what it'll look like, and I have a feeling what it needs to say, but the rest is well, I know it sounds terrible, divine intervention.
Right.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of go back a little bit then. Your artistic vocabulary is so unique and distinctive. I think be really interesting for everyone here to hear a little bit about the many artistic influences that have gone to shape your work. Would you like to share a little bit about, some of the things that come from your background, and then the things you've picked up along the way?
Well, I think, of course, wait, hold on. I came from, I come from Kashmir, and I did grow up in the beautiful valley, and there you can see the Dal Lake, and that's where I used to spend every single Saturday. And then it is a region of great beauty, and I was extremely lucky because as a child, I was a loner, and I had a lot of time to spend in the mountains on my own, because it was. I was very privileged not to have any friends or any distractions, but I did have, a chauffeur who would do exactly what I would ask him to do and take me here and there. So
nothing has changed then.
Nothing has changed. And so, it was very, very good. And of course, it was a time when, back in the days, this was
The 80s.
before the trouble. And I did have some incredible teachers. And Kashmir was a very, very different place than it is now. It was before the
Tell people about some of your teachers and the many influences in your...
I was taught by, that's the word where the word Pandit comes from, the Pandit scholars of Kashmir. And I do consider them the original Kashmiris, because let's not forget, there's a land, it's a land of a great learning of Vedanta philosophy and Kashmiri Shaivism. And so it was, and of a great beauty as well.
Yeah.
And of course, I would finish school, and I used to suffer from exercise-induced asthma, so I didn't really have to, behave like a baboon and run after balls like the rest of the people did. So
cricket for you, yeah.
so I would spend a lot of time studying, and they were. I realized that it was an incredibly spiritual place and very dense. And very loaded with history. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the greatest and oldest universities in the world were there. I mean,
of course.
How long ago was that? I mean, like Sharda Peeth. How old was Sharda Peeth?
Ancient times. Yeah.
I mean, does it still exist? I think it's in the Pakistan side.
It is. But there's a kind of smaller version of it that they've created in Kashmir now. Yeah.
Yes, and then of course it was a place of gardens, and you'd have the Mughal influence. And I did write this rather lovely little paper that I'll send to you about the gardens and the importance of gardens, and how there was a period when, at the time of Shah Jahan, when the whole of India was ruled from a garden in Kashmir, because that's where he would have his court, and so it was quite a fascinating thing to come across. And of course, it was a period of a great religious tolerance, as you were saying yesterday about the Kashmiri art. Why don't you speak about that a bit more? The Kashmiri art and how you describe it? Because
Well, of course, Kashmir over the centuries has seen everything from many different types of Hinduism. And of course, as you mentioned, Shaivism itself, especially Shaiva Siddhanta philosophies were created in Kashmir, and greatly evolved there. But of course, we have Buddhism there, but there were also, of course, bouts of tremendous violence, even in those years, that today we've forgotten because the Hephthalites, the Huns, ruled there, and even some of the later early medieval rulers, I mean, there were bouts of great fervor and other bouts of great violence. But Kashmir in those days, of course, was so connected to both the rest of India and to Central Asia through all these many trade routes. And then, of course, there was the great Lalitaditya. And his conquest. But anyway, coming back to some of the, the traditions of Kashmir, perhaps you'd like to talk a little bit about how they shaped you.
I mean, there was really no sort of painting so it was basically, I remember my earliest influences were the great shrines, and we have some here. They're very, very beautifully decorated, and that's papier-mâché from Shamdan, I suppose, And of course, these were the so-called Sufi shrines of Kashmir, which sort of went against the hardline Muslim kind of mentality. And so, yes, that was...
kind of layer upon layer of different types of decoration, from khatamband to...
Yeah, I do particularly like the ceilings, because
they're gorgeous.
Every single room has that particular ceiling, which is a lattice ceiling. And then we move on to, of course, woodwork, and so it was all not necessarily what you see I mean, of course, there were the influences from the Persian Empire, but then somehow in Kashmir they created a hybrid of their own style. I think it was based on the abundance of color, and the beauty and the nature, I think. So that was
the nature kind of had an impact on the kind of way in which the Srinagar Valley.
And also, I mean, you can see it in absolutely everything that they make. I mean, for example, if you look at their carpets, and you see that Persian carpets have a certain kind of
it's more kind
color
of
combination. Whereas when you see the same similar carpets made in Kashmir, they're absolutely completely ridiculously saturated. But at the same time, there is that great color coordination. And that color coordination comes from nature.
Yeah.
You see, it's all the things that you see in gardens or in let's say, spring blooms that are not really coordinated. But I think that's where our aesthetic comes from. It comes from nature. Yeah.
Well, and then you escaped.
And then I escaped, of course.
Yeah.
I escaped, and well, it did take a bit of effort and perseverance to escape. And I came to England, and well, actually, before I escaped, it was that painting that I saw at the National Gallery, the Holbein, and there I was being trained to be one of the sort of the merchants, and then I saw.
Just as an aside,
Yes.
Raqib grew up in a family of merchants.
Yes.
So it was expected that he would work with them, and he did for a bit.
I did.
Yeah.
And what really took me by surprise, as far as and I remember it to this day, this painting at the National Gallery is, firstly, the way it was, the way Holbein painted it. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, the fur, and although it's extremely delicate now, they can't even move it because it's about to fall apart, kind of thing. But also, you see a scene where you see the merchant class, and of course, they are, they have the money, they have all the things that money can buy. And what I really loved, what Holbein did, is he has this incredible anamorphic skull that, in a way, makes fun of.
It's in the next slide.
That makes fun of the merchants. Like. They might have everything that money can buy, but they are going to die. And then there was this wonderful choice that I thought that, do I want to be the merchant or do I want to be the one who takes the piss of the merchant and who makes fun of the merchants? I said, I think I'm going to make fun of the merchants by painting them. So
that
that's
is
what I
you
decided.
getting back on your uncle.
I was like, I'm going to paint the merchants. So that's how it started. And then back then, let's not forget, in sort of 1998, 1999, painting was supposed to be dead, and especially in an institution like St. Martin's, where, painters were looked at as dinosaurs, and it was a very strange time. And of course, no one really.
This is the late 90s.
Yeah. And no one really used to go. I mean, the most wonderful thing about St. Martin's at Charing Cross Road was that it was so close to the National Gallery, and it was just and no one went to the National Gallery. So I remember in my BA final year, I did a pastiche of Cranach, and it's Venus and Cupid, and which I think is a very charming work. And by the way, this was one of, I think this is the only woman I've ever painted. Yeah. And by the way, and people thought that, the students were asking about Cranach, who is she? So they didn't know that, that Cranach was...
So there was no art history teaching at the same time?
No, because but anyway, but this was the technique that I had, I'd found my medium, I'd found my technique. And then, of course, I was looking a lot at, to develop the technique, I wanted to first start off with pastiches, because, that would give me a sort of a framework. And, of course, I did a lot of Japanese. There you can see the lovely hokusai. Of course, my version is a bit brighter. And then there is the chrysanthemums. Yeah, it's that taking that linear ukiyo-e thing and then...
and you can see a tiny bit of this even in Paradise Lost with the,
absolutely, yes,
the mums
yes.
and yeah.
Because, and also, and I also fell in love with the Japanese way of thinking and making and how one can, how do you make, for example, this... particular painting and the wood block that you see here. So he's trying to paint the wind, and it's the bee and the pointiness of the bee going into the flower. So it's all those things that really did fascinate me, and so they started off with pastiches.
But it's really fascinating when you actually mentioned the bee. I was just thinking about how you've then taken that and transferred it into this kind of monumental scale. When you think about, how you've taken these elements, your sparrows and other things that you see in Paradise Lost.
Yeah, because also the thing is that the whole idea was that I had found my medium because oil was not really my medium because it really had, oil has such an incredible history and there was no way that I could call it my own. So I decided that what would happen if I work around with one medium to an extent that it transcends itself and becomes perhaps as good as oil.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your technique, and maybe you want to go to the next slide. Yeah.
But yes,
Because
these,
I, as those of you who've already seen Paradise Lost will have noticed, Raqib has a very unique and painstaking technique. So how did you come about, painting in the way that you did? How did you come upon your own special technique?
Well, it was in St. Martin's, of course, it was very much about, but the first seminar was about materials and as I said, that I really wanted to have my own material. And I stumbled upon hammerite, which is this thing that you use to paint directly into rust. You don't even need to sand the surface down, so it's extremely lethal.
So it's what is used for automobiles.
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
To paint cars.
Yeah. And then, of course, as and it's a true story that I used to have a little bar in the studio where we would have sort of expired drinks from everywhere. And people would come and drown their sorrows. And once there were these pots on the table, and someone fell. A number of boys fell, and the paints fell all over the floor. And I realized that some of them there was some sort of a chemical reaction, and some of them were sort of gliding over the base, and others were repelled. So I thought that it would be a great idea to use that. And then, of course, I did some experiments, and then you see here, now that is the most embarrassing painting ever. And I don't know what...
So these were the early experiments with hammerite?
These are, these are four peoples negotiating a plate of food, as you see in Kashmiri marriages. Yeah, and you have those meatballs made of like PVC glue and blood. This is ridiculous. But what you see here is what's happening is that so this material I could not really paint properly with it because it needed an outline, and because, for example, in this one here, it's just going crazy. Yeah. So I realized that if I enclosed a drawing with what was stained glass liner, and then pour the paint within, and then manipulate it, and then I would get the most incredible results. For example, you would get that sort of stuff, you see?
Like and mosaic.
Yeah. And if one knows the composition of the materials and to control them, you could then use these accidents to your benefit and then suggest form and shape. And at that time, one of my early, she was a very good friend of mine, and since the days when I used to sell shawls on South Audley Street, and she went to Botswana. And I got a letter from her, because those days I was squatting in Hackney Wick in a peanut factory, and there was no heating, no lighting. It was quite miserable. And I got this little bag full of porcupine quills, because porcupines had been fighting outside her tent in Botswana, and she woke up in the morning and she found these quills, and she said, oh, you're using needles and little pins, and these might give you a lot of control. And they did. Suddenly you had the quills that would really be able to do whatever I wanted to do with them. And back then, there was only limited 4 colors that I could use. But then about 10 years later, I found this machine on eBay, the disused paint machine. And that is what we're using now. And now we have a rather fabulous array of paints, as you can see.
Wow.
And then, of course, there was the very first, the result was the very, very first painting in St. Martin's, which was called Nowadays I'm Able to Greet Beauty, after Rimbaud's poem of the same title, after Une Saison en Enfer, and here we are. So that was the first...
The evolution of the technique.
So those were the first orchids. And by the way, the wonderful thing about this painting is that it's owned by Central St. Martin's, so it belongs to the nation. And I saw it a few years ago. Because I didn't really have any money, so this was painted on a door that I found in the skip. Oh. And if you look closely at this painting, all the orchids, they have these little things coming out. So over the years, the nails have started coming out. So it's quite a volatile thing, but it's basically the pigment that's holding the nails in.
Ah.
So I don't know what's happening to it now. Because, I mean, I couldn't sort of, I'm really bad at carpentry. I couldn't, I couldn't make a surface. So yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, your narrative traditions, because you've taken narrative to a whole different point with Paradise Lost, and on a monumental scale. So how did you start to kind of be influenced in thinking about your narratives?
Well, so once I'd sorted my material and I'd sorted how to sort of work with it, then I was extremely fascinated by Hieronymus Bosch. So that was, so I started a series called A Garden of Earthly Delights. This was immediately after college. And well, it had its sort of rather few weird moments. There you are. And this was all happening in Percy Dalton's peanut factory. It still exists, and it's in Hackney Wick. And it was a lovely studio. I mean, it was Hackney Wick wasn't what it was. I mean, what it is now.
These are
back
the
then.
early days of Hackney.
Yes, and we used to have this lovely bin outside the studio. You were not supposed to live there. And I remember that it was a favorite place for people to deposit dismembered bodies.
Oops.
I remember there was once I just see a hand or two and then police dogs. I mean, they would kill people in the north of England and deposit them outside the studio. So they would drive all the way. So it was, for some very strange reason, it was a favorite place for that sort of stuff. And so that was the
a
studio.
Source of inspiration for the artists.
and back then I really didn't I didn't have any money to buy absolutely anything. So it was a place where lots of doors were thrown, and I used to, quite a lot of paintings have been painted on doors, like the ones that you see here as well. Yeah. And then, of course, there was the Earthly Delight series. Then there was that was the first large painting that I did. And of course, the inspiration was from Bosch's painting, but then they morphed into their own thing and became whatever they had to become.
I mean, your style kind of emerged really early on. I mean, straight out of school.
Yeah.
So, and because that series was so well known and so well regarded.
Oh, yeah. I think that series was, I mean, it really was absolutely ridiculous because, I mean, as James pointed out, it was, by the way, it was James who told me recently that he remembers what a great hype there was back then. I had just come out of college, and within a year, I have a solo show in New York, and then there is the acquisition of the largest painting, and with MoMA, and then there was another group show at MoMA, and it was just ridiculous. And then there was an auction thing that happened, and then it was a bit too much to take, and it was just
everything was happening all at once.
It was horrible because I never really thought that one had to deal with all that, and then suddenly you were surrounded by all these people who tell you you're really great, and then of course I could see through it, and it made me very, very depressed. So I consciously decided to make ugly paintings. So I did everything. And, usually when you...
in the hope to discourage people from having them.
For example, when you make a painting, and if the painting has sexual content, and people say, oh, we have children. We can't have that on the wall, we have children. So I did a series. I mean, for about 5 years, I painted children being sort of taken out of food blenders and sort of mincing machines.
Your grotesque phase,
I did everything possible that I could to children, and I would have sort of flying penises and I'll tell you a story. And this is about the British Council. They had 2 works on paper for years and years and years, and they were in their offices in London. And it was, I think, a few years ago that they realized that they were flying penises. And then they took them away.
Oh, I thought they'd sell it and make a lot of money for themselves.
It was that sort of stuff that was happening back then. And of course, I think that, as you can see here, that's the second chapter.
That feeds into Paradise Lost second chapter.
And then I would...
Let people see... the second chapter for a second,
So the second chapter, I think, is very, very much like... now, the thing about the second chapter is that if you look at the painting, the second chapter is the only section of the painting that is enlarged. And if you see that on two sides, it's flanked by these two figures that are holding on to these mirrors. But they're not really mirrors, they're viewfinders. So, and this is the only section in the painting that directly references the society and the world that I feel, as I see it, as that we live in. Mm-hmm. And it was painted all those years ago, but... and it's about these golden coins being thrown, and there is this great chaos. It was based on one of the paintings that I called "The Gradual Decline of the Kingdom of Greed."
Yeah,
and I used to have it was a ridiculous time. I would have titles like "Birth of Greed," "Consequence of Greed," the Gradual Decline of the Kingdom of Greed," and you know what? People didn't see them; they still bought them. It used to amaze me.
So no one got the irony.
No one did. Mm-hmm. And then of course I would make them deliberately very violent. And then there is that's of course Henry and his queens and blah blah and yeah. And then of course there's this
and
one
of
here.
course some of that grotesque comes into chapter 2 very much.
Very much so. Mm-hmm. And it's a pity that we don't have details of this painting. So this is a blind butterfly catcher. He's trying to catch butterflies with his net that is broken. And right next to him is this baby on a skewer. He's being roasted. And there's, a monkey's anus being prodded, and there are sort of these fish eggs coming out of it. I mean, it's total grotesque. And it was shown at the Met.
Did anyone see the details?
Oh yeah, they did. They did. And also, what was really amazing is of course. Gary Tinterow, the director. I mean, he's amazing, and he had bought out the Holbein's Dances of Death. So it was incredible to see that Holbein was making fun of mortality and the human condition and how humans behave all those years ago as well. And then there is this other painting, which, of course, now this painting was supposed to be the last panel of the second chapter of Paradise Lost, but I decided to take it away because it just turned into a dead end. But I think this painting really does sum up. It's on view somewhere in, I think it's in a museum in Hamburg at the moment, or somewhere, yeah. So I think it somehow, it just says it all about this. So anyway, so that was the Kingdom of Greed number and all the destruction gone. And then, of course, with that sorted, my life became slightly more peaceful.
Well, I mean, your chapter 3 of Paradise Lost also shows enormous, tumult, and it's very tumultuous, and until that sense of peace is found. Yeah. But one of the things that is so interesting throughout Paradise Lost, but particularly in chapter 3, are representations of you, of the artist, and when did you start to think about? In earlier stages of Paradise Lost, of course, you see avatars of you with different types of heads and stuff. But then you suddenly start to emerge, first from the smoke and then in full form. Yeah. So how did that evolve?
Well, it's like everything else. We do construct our image very, very carefully, so that's how we want to be seen, and then that's how we want to be received and perceived. And then I realized that, I really can't take it anymore. So who cares? And then, of course, for example, it started off, you talk about the smoke, I call it the ugly me's. And I was very much influenced by Bhutto and No, and there's this dance troupe.
Let's just explain for people that the ugly me's that we're referring to is the transition from chapter 1 to chapter 2, where in the smoke you will see Raqib's visage, and then again there are more of
I think
his representation.
Oh, there you are. Yeah. There they are.
In the transition and in sections of chapter 3.
That was based on the photo shoots in the studio. Oh, this is so embarrassing. Why am I doing this myself? Oh, there you are. Because it's. We as humans, we do have these moments, and it's. I really don't care. And
But
then, of
you know,
course,
it's to me. I was saying this to you yesterday. That can you go back a slide? Yeah, those expressions remind me of the kind of rasas within Indian art as well. You know, all the different emotions.
yeah, no, but also they are, well, you know, it's the kind of faces that we make in the bathroom in front of the mirror.
But on the other hand, it's your faces are also like a Greek chorus, you know, constantly commenting. So at every stage of your life, it's like this, all these multiple voices going on.
The thing is, no matter what, you know, each one of us, and you know, every single person alive, you know, life is not easy. You know, and we go through hell.
Yeah.
And what can you do? You have to laugh about it. Because, you know, and it's not, I mean, I used to think that, oh my God, my life is terrible. But then I realized that every single person is going through hell. And it's not easy. And no matter who it is, they are going through hell. And that's the human condition. But anyway, so then I would also, well, that's a more decent one. So, that's more aesthetic, and so I would have these, because these scenarios would act as life studies, because we need life studies, and then they would sort of turn into paintings. I quite like that one.
Yeah, that's beautiful. With another of the thought bubbles.
Yeah, because I think that how this turns into that is quite charming. You know?
Indeed.
Oh, and of course, this has this little bubble, and that is when the studio got burnt. So I had this lovely, and it was such a wonderful thing to happen. So I had the studio, so that was the studio, and it always used to be decked in flowers, and it used to be an incredible place. And then one day, one of the candles, one of the candles fell on the hydrangeas, and that happened. And it was fabulous that happened, because that then turned into my favorite painting in Venice. There you are. So it was that transition, I think that... So I tell you, that was a very expensive life study. That was a very, very expensive life study, but I think it was a very good one, too.
Only you could say that and get away with it.
Because you know, the thing is that, you know, I would never be able to get... I mean, it's a pity that I couldn't have... I don't have a better picture of this, but the vignettes... You know, you could never... you know, the vignettes that you see, you could never, fake them. You could never imagine them. And of course, we had the score on the piano, and this piano is a Viennese Bosendorfer. Would you believe that it works perfectly?
After the fire?
Yes.
Oh,
that's how
I
good
didn't
they were.
realize it had survived the fire.
It did. And then, of course...
So in a way, the fire was a kind of cleansing?
Oh, it certainly was. Because the studio was always, you know, a place where everyone used to sort of... It was a party place. And then I was very, very glad that we had the fire. So and then it ceased to be the party place.
So the kind of transition that you're seeing from chapter 3 to 4 is part of that personal kind of letting go.
Yeah. And then also, you know, you realize that, you know, it's the world is full of all sorts of people, and who do you want to be with, or who do you
treasure the most?
Or would you rather be alone? So anyway, so there's the Ikebana days, and that's all the Ikebana scenario. That also...
One of the things that Raqib is hiding behind and not revealing is, of course, that he's a master at Ikebana. Besides...
Well, I can teach.
well, that's a master.
Well, I have a teaching certificate. Yes.
Along with...
Yeah. I'm specializing in Rika. Well, yes.
And he's really into his bonsais and his gardening.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a story for another day, right?
Yeah.
So tell us, at the end, perhaps we can just briefly refer to your beloved Mr. C, who we see throughout the Paradise Lost. Losing him, I know, was... one of those great moments for you, again, of letting go of tremendous grief. But again, you channelized it, right?
Well, you know what? I always used to... I mean, I can only speak for myself and based on my own experience. I think that the incredible acute sorrow that one faces in life, and all the that we think are terrible things that happen in life, are absolutely incredibly important. And they open doors, and because I think sorrow has this incredible quality of burning ego. And suddenly, things don't matter. And one does feel incredible freedom. and sort of a liberation. And
In the sense that how much worse can you be?
yeah, absolutely. And then you realize that, so what is important to me and what do I want to do? And suddenly you don't really care about what people think of you, because, when you're at that level of sorry, everything evaporates. You don't care about new clothes or how you're seen or what you have in your bank, because nothing can help you out. And I think that it was the most fabulous thing ever to happen. Now, I have a theory about painting, is that I believe that there is absolutely no way that we can, think of, I'm going to make a great painting today and that's going to be a great painting. I feel what makes painting great is that when we are at a level of when we're completely destroyed, absolutely destroyed, and we turn to the medium of painting, and something happens at that particular moment in time when that energy flows onto the surface of the work, and very much like an insect embalmed in amber. And it stays there. And it's incredible that how it stays there forever, and other people can sense it. People who are not, who can focus on things, and people who are used to focusing on things, and people who have that sense. It doesn't matter if it's someone who is a cleaner. It doesn't matter if someone is a great scholar. They can feel it. And that is what I feel is something that you really can't put in the work. And that's what makes painting special.
A great painting.
And I've seen it. And there is no way, absolutely no way that any artist can say that, I'm going to make a painting and it's going to have that. Absolutely not. It goes in there when you are not expecting it to happen, and it stays there and you're like, oh my God. And you see people reacting to it, and you see people crying, and that's so fabulous to happen.
Because that's when it kind of transcends. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that
everyone kind of gets...
I think that is the only thing that makes, in my humble opinion, I think that's the only thing that makes a painting great. It's not how great the artist or his technique or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's that sincerity that stays there and that speaks to other people. And in a way, I think that it gives us hope that there, even if you think that is the worst thing that's happened to you, the fact that you're alive, how are you going to use that? I mean, there's also that wonderful, sweet as Judi Dench comes into play when she said that, I was really, really destroyed, and then, I don't watch television, and there was a podcast or something, and she was saying that, she used to love her husband, and she said that she only had two choices when her husband died, and one was to go into that bottomless pit of self-pity and sorrow, and the other was to use sorrow as petrol for creativity. And I tell you, it really does work. It works.
That's become your mantra.
Yeah. Oh, and then, of course, we have this lovely... Now I shall end with this lovely painting here. Of course, that's my darling Mr. C. And, of course, I painted him as when he was alive, I painted him as Christ. But then when he died, I thought that I need to do something better. So I painted him as the mother of Christ. And this is one of the paintings that you see in Venice in the Basilica of Madonna del Orto, and where Tintoretto is buried as well. And this is one of those paintings. And currently in the studio, there's a little sweetie for all. So you have that painting, and there is... Yes.
So this is the latest...
Well, it's a reworking of, so you see that I've sort of come out of that scene and I've gone somewhere else. It's still in progress. Yeah.
So in conclusion, Raqib, how, after having gone through this kind of odyssey, what are your thoughts about how people should receive and see Paradise Lost? Clearly, there are sections within Paradise Lost that are very autobiographical, that mean a lot to you. But how would you like people to, receive it?
Well, the thing is I feel that it is not specifically, I don't think at all that it is, sort of my journey and it's a personal thing. I think it is, it's a journey of each one of our lives. And I think that it's a matter of what does one identify with, the thing about sorrow is that I think it makes you incredibly compassionate, because you think, I mean, whenever I see someone, I think to myself, if this person has gone through that experience, this person needs my compassion. And if this person hasn't, this person will. So the person needs my love. And you know, we all have to go through hell in life. There is no two ways about it. And but I think to somehow change that and transform that hell into something positive, I think it's a duty that we all do owe to ourselves. Because there's a trillion things to be depressed about, but there might be one thing to be happy about, and might as well concentrate on that. Otherwise, it's just a shit show, really, all of it.
Well, on that lovely note, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, Raqib Shaw. Are you okay to take a few questions after that? Okay. Well, we have time for a few questions. In case you have a burning question, please feel free to raise your hands. And I think there are microphones that will come to you. Yes, we have a question up here. Just wait for the mic, yeah.
So thank you very much for the conversation and for the insights. I had the opportunity to come this morning very early. I was here when the doors opened to spend an hour with the work to try to understand it. My husband came with me, and he has a very basic question. There's a female face in an owl or a bird-like shape over you resting, and we were discussing the iconography of it, and that feels to me the most feminine energy in the work, and just curious who that is and what she represents.
Oh, I thought I had her well hidden. She's my best friend, and what's really hilarious is that we go back a very, very, very long time. And I asked her once, I mean, she always used to say that, oh, you know, why don't you put me in one of your paintings? And I said, oh, what would you want to be? What would you like to be? And she said, oh, I want to be an owl because I'm really wise. So, so she is the owl.
Yeah. And for those who haven't found the owl, go find it. She has a very wise face.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question down here.
Hi. Thank you so much for this piece. It's incredible. I've been painting ever since I was little, and I've never really seen somebody else have what I feel is almost like similar imagery to what my brain produces, which is just like so many flashes of all of these things, and I want to include them all in my painting. So I was wondering like how you as an artist decide what goes where and how.
Oh, I don't decide what goes where and how, because you see, if I've realized if you use the logical side of your brain and you start, keep on questioning and it doesn't necessarily work. If you use the other side of your brain and you just go with the feeling, your instinct,
Yeah.
Without logic, I think that works much better.
Okay.
It's like if you analyze and then because then the reasoning comes in and then inevitably it's like, oh, is it going to be liked by others? Is it not going to be?
Yeah.
And then all that filth comes in. So the best is that you really absolutely don't care about who's going to like it, who's not going to like it, and even your own censorship of what you feel is good or bad. Oh no, just go with the flow. Be free.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the insight. I learned something, what a life study is and how it informs some of your paintings. It says in this section may represent Shaw's feeling of suffocation in his childhood and his desire to escape. What specifically, do you care to share anything from your childhood that you were wanting to escape?
Sorry.
It's he's reading the label from the first section of a chapter of Paradise Lost, and he's asking what made you want to escape. What made you feel suffocated and want to escape Kashmir?
What do you mean when I was a child? What made me Oh, absolutely everything. I found I found the expectations of my family suffocating. I found the society suffocating. I'm not really sure if I've improved much, even now. I find everything about human society extremely suffocating, and I find everything. I mean, most human companies extremely. Very suffocating and very, very dull. I mean, I could write a book.
And so you were scheming to escape the valley for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. But mind you, then I realized that if I escaped physically, but then I realized that I did carry myself with me. So it doesn't matter where we go physically until we don't sort out our minds and deal with the stuff that we have to. We carry our own minds everywhere, and that is the biggest prison. So I think that it's. I mean, we need to show ourselves a lot of kindness. I suggest that I'm rereading Jung again, and it's we really have to sort out our shadows, because our shadow selves really need to be looked at. Otherwise, it's just we just keep on catering to the mask that we wear. And it's quite a bore to carry that mask all the time. It gets stuck to the skin, and then the skin gets stuck to the mask, and then before you know that, you don't even know who you are. You're just wearing that mask. Especially in our day and age, it's all about the mask.
Could I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
So I'm a writer, and some writer I was studying, they were saying sometimes, like when they write, it's like their hand is responding to the pen. You were saying that like life doesn't necessarily dictate your paintings, but your paintings are dictating your life in the way that it's going.
Yes.
Do you feel like your hand is responding to the paintbrush and to like the medium or like the canvas?
One, I think that my life is responding to that. And it's very unknown. You don't really know what it is. But let go and let that, whatever it is, take control. And it's incredible when you, for example, when you're writing and you watch the pen and your hand and you really don't know what the hell is going on. That's an incredible thing to happen. And if you notice, the moment you let your mind, if your logic comes in, it stops.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have less of a question and more of a comment. As we were planning on coming here, I looked at some of the work and I was thinking about it. And I actually was struggling to understand it, right? And it has been the most fascinating hour right now. Just hearing the words you use, the way you see your emotions, the way you bring it to life, I can see it in the stuff you've created. And so if I hadn't come here, I would have walked out intellectually kind of interested. I think I want to go back and look at the work you've done in a way that I don't think I would have. So thank you.
That's a beautiful observation. Thank you. And to end with, and I'll end with one last thought. And I think we observed some of it over the last almost hour. Paradise Lost is a kind of external, conceptual, literary, and philosophical architecture, and like a kind of armature that Raqib built around. But what in fact happens when you go back, and especially having listened to Madhu and Raqib this afternoon, there's so much landscape, there are interiors, but in fact, within the conceptual architecture of Paradise Lost, and you'll understand this after the last 50 minutes, Raqib is hiding in plain sight. Raqib is there. And actually, if you look really carefully, Raqib is telling you all kinds of things, beautiful things, difficult things, personal things. It's obscured sometimes not, but it's like that wonderful question about the face of the woman and the owl. It's obviously a very deeply personal and wonderful, but you're in every brushstroke. You are in every place. And when you have the privilege, I said when I opened, like, I learned to look by standing next to you without you even speaking necessarily. And now that you've heard Raqib speak, go back and you will find him in the most magical and beautiful and difficult and revealing places. It's an epic work of art, and we are so grateful. We're grateful to all of you for being here. We're grateful to Madhuvanti for curating this so expertly, but most of all, Raqib, we love you, I love you, and thank you.